Hello and welcome again to this edition of FTBA. I'm your host, Brad Swanson. We are coming to you just a few blocks from the Florida Capitol in the FIT studios. We are once again joined by Secretary Ananth Prasad, now President and CEO of the Florida Transportation Builders Association. Welcome back.
Good to be with you, Brad.
All right, so we've got a lot going on in federal money and building and all sorts of stuff. We're going to get into that, but what I want to start with is could you explain for our viewers what your association does?
Well, it's predominantly contains the companies who do infrastructure work in the state of Florida. What I said, rough math would be 95% of the public infrastructure work is built by FTBA members. So we have a lot of contractors, concrete, asphalt, steel, a lot of engineering firms, equipment dealers, lawyers, all the sort of the businesses surrounding building, designing of the infrastructure are FTBA members.
So what people know, that's different that Florida does that versus other states. Other states actually own the equipment. They have employees that build the road, but we outsource all of it here in Florida. It's essentially our infrastructure as a private sector solution.
Exactly. 100% of the construction work is outsourced in Florida. It's probably predominantly true in most states, but some states still do asphalt plants. Right. Georgia owns an asphalt plant. Florida DOT does not.
Right. I love it. Okay, so we should probably tell the viewers that no, we didn't call each other before this interview, but it happens to be Gator Day at the Capitol today, so we're flexing our orange and blue today. So no, we're not twins, but people mistake us for twins all the time.
Go Gators.
They come up and call me Secretary Prasad all the time, but it's just because I like to dress like you. All right, so let's jump back in, and when we look at the dollars coming down from the feds, tell us about how much of that money and the billions and trillions that we talk about, how much is being slated and targeted at core infrastructure?
So it's a pretty transformative bill. It's $1.2 trillion Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act. Now they call it bipartisan infrastructure bill. It's 34% increased funding to state of Florida. State of Florida currently gets $2 billion of federal funds every year. It's going to be close to $2.7 billion. It is the highest investment the federal government's making over multiple decades since President Ronald Reagan. We're investing 1% of GDP into our nation's infrastructure.
Wow.
That's been a big topic of conversation. You know, while President Trump talked about how our airports don't look as good, well, they don't look as good because we don't invest enough. Comparatively, China invests 4.5% of their GDP into infrastructure. And they got 3-4 times the population too.
Sure.
But it's pretty transformative as far as trying to invest. Vast majority of it, it's good infrastructure. You know, infrastructure is not, it's broadband, it's water, it's electric vehicle charging, it's the bridges, the transit. So what I would consider about 90% of the $1.2 trillion bill is what I would define infrastructure being. It's not just roads and bridges, but also broadband, which obviously your members are very interested in.
We are. We as they finally realize that obviously the roads and bridges connect people physically and broadband connects everybody digitally, but it's that very same right-of-way that we all have to work in. When you look at the nexus between broadband and where that now sits, typically in transportation policy, you know, how has that been an adjustment for you in your former role as secretary and now as your role as kind of still the lead advocate, if you will, for transportation infrastructure funding in general?
Well, broadband is the new highway for the 21st century, right? It's what makes, you know, we order goods and from Amazon and shows up, and it's through broadband, right? It's through connectivity. And obviously, DOTs around the country had to transform their role. You know, most DOTs now are putting fiber in their right-of-way, allowing private sector to access that. Again, we don't want government to be in the business of broadband and private sector business, but they can facilitate because there's right-of-way. And you can put dig ones and put all the conduits in one trench. And I think that's important, and it's going to continue to get important. The federal bill, have you seen, there's emphasis on that. In the state, there's been many legislation dealing with corridors and Senate Bill 100 that also talks about that connectivity. So it's not just connectivity on pavement,
Right.
but also connectivity through communication and internet.
All right, top issue. What are you advocating for to the Florida legislature this year?
Well, we're very thankful. Again, continued funding. It seems like we got a lot of billions floating around in the legislature here. Yeah. So last year we were thankful for the Senate President, the Speaker, and the Governor to dedicate $2 billion additional into the DOT Trust Fund. Obviously, costs have gone up significantly, so we're asking the legislature to kind of at least give some more money to the department to offset those price increases, so that we don't defer any projects that are already planned.
And that's just in core aggregate and core the materials that it takes to maintain.
Steel is up 400%. PVC is up 400%. And we've got suppliers and contractors who do that work. The cost of material itself has offshot their contract itself to do the entire job. So it's a business issue too. We want to help them survive this sort of inflationary pressure, so that we can maintain good competition.
In our final comment, last 30 seconds, what are the top challenges that face your industry?
Workforce. We got to find people.
Right.
We don't have enough people to do work. Florida's a growing state. We need a lot of infrastructure, a lot of broadband, a lot of needs, but we just can't seem to find people, good qualified people to build that.
Well, I'm sure you're working with Michelle Denard over at Workforce Florida and all the resources across the state. We know no one's doing more to advocate for the leading transportation infrastructure in a state than you, and we thank you for coming on Phi TV.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. That's all the time we have for this episode of Phi TV. Make sure you hit us up on our social media feeds for more great interviews like this one, and for now, thanks for tuning in.